Hey, I'm Tracie, the Better Coach, and welcome to my YouTube channel, where I help women move from feeling bitter to better after breakups, date better the next time around, and generally protect their peace in spite of all of life's ups and downs. I'm glad you're here, and let's get into it. In this video, I talk about ways in which your ex may be seeking to control you, the implications of this controlling behavior, and how to deal with it. It's also helpful to ask yourself if you're exhibiting any of these controlling behaviors toward your ex. And if you are, stop it. An ex may try to control you in an attempt to force you to get back with them, in order to get revenge, or for some sense of personal fulfillment that has everything to do with them and nothing to do with you. Here are some ways in which an ex may attempt to exert control. They can attempt to do this through parenting means by withholding the child from you or encouraging parental alienation. They can interfere with your dating life or just your social life in general. So this can be contacting people you're dating. This can be stalking people you're dating or interfering and reaching out to your friends, checking in on where you are or who you're with. They can make physical threats or actually be physically abusive. They can threaten property damage or actually engage in property damage. They can make legal threats such as threatening to take you to court for unnecessary reasons. They can exert financial control, so not paying things like child support or alimony, or not paying their portion of a joint bill that you guys are still paying together, or things that are in both of you guys' names, them choosing not to do their part of it, and creating financial strife for you. They can also just generally try to limit your independence or freedom, being inconsistent with or refusing to do childcare when you want to go out, or just doing things or not doing things that they know will cause you to have to be more restricted and stay home and not go out and not socialize or meet new people, or prevent you from being able to get employment or increase your financial independence. There are a number of ways that people can attempt to control you. This list is definitely not exhaustive. The implications of this type of behavior is stress for you, stress for your kids if you have any, and interference in your ability to create the life that you want for yourself. It can completely ruin your dating life or your social life. It can cause you to have all sorts of financial hardships. It can cause a lot of mental and emotional upheaval and stress. And if you have children, it can stress them out. They see a poor model of co-parenting, and it can cause them all sorts of emotional or academic and educational and social concerns. Now that we've talked about what this controlling behavior can look like and the implications of it, let's talk about how to deal with it. You want to start out with knowing your goals, meaning how do you want to feel? What do you want your life to look like? How do you want your children to feel? Or how do you want to wake up every day and feel? Knowing that you don't have all of this stress around how your ex is behaving towards you or attempting to control you. What do you want your finances to look like, your dating life to look like, your social life to look like, your living environment? What do you want your kids' lives to look like? Knowing the answer to these things is a starting point for figuring out what you need to do in order to create the type of life and the type of feelings that you want to have. Once you've determined how you want to feel, what you want your life to look like, the key is boundary setting. You are going to need to really establish and enforce and reinforce boundaries with your ex. And you can set boundaries in a number of ways. First, there's just verbally setting boundaries, having conversations with people to let them know what you need and want and will tolerate and won't tolerate, all of these things. So you want to have a conversation with your ex. And of course, some people are way more open to these types of conversations than others. So I understand that you may have an ex who it just, is impossible to communicate with. They don't listen, or they don't want to hear it, or they won't allow you the opportunity. That should not stop you from delivering the message. So what you want to do is write down, type up, voice record the conversation that you would like to have with your ex about what boundaries you would like in place. So you need to sit down and think about, how you want to feel, what you want your life to look like. And that you keep that in the back of your mind as the motivating or the driving force for what you choose to verbalize to your ex. And then when you have this typed up or you've recorded it on a voice note, you want to take this time to like pre-record or write it down so that you can edit it and make it sound be as direct and clear and respectful as possible. Then you deliver the message. Ideally, it's a message that you can deliver in person and have a calm, effective conversation about. And if you're someone who's in that category where you have an ex who is open to that, then that is what I recommend you do. But you very well may not have that option, but you still need to deliver the message. So you can send it via email and say, this is what, I wanted to talk to you about. Send it in a text if you don't have their email. Ideally, you would send it via email because it likely will be a longer thing, so that will be easier to do an email rather than text. But if you don't have their email or they never check it, or that they're not going to likely see it in email, then text it to them. But also, even if you email it to them, you should call them or text them to let them know that you emailed it. If you need to write a good old letter or type up and print out a good old letter and mail that in the mail because that's the only way you can contact them, do that. I'll call them on the phone if you need to. Send it through a voice note or a voice message. The point here is that regardless of how open the person is to having the conversation, that should not stop you from delivering the message. Because what you are doing is you are clearly establishing your boundaries and making it so this person cannot say that they did not know or did not understand. You are delivering the message to them, and they have the opportunity to respond and to ask questions to clarify if they need to. So just understand that that person's willingness to hear or entertain the conversation should not impact whether you deliver the message or not. You need to deliver the message because they need to know, and in you putting the message together, it actually makes you think about what your boundaries are. What do you need in place in order to feel the way you want to feel and live the life that you want to live? Then there are physical boundaries. So this might involve you actually moving somewhere. Maybe you move out of the home that you were in with that person, or maybe they move out. So there might be an actual moving from where you live. But also just things around you choosing not to go into environments that you don't have to be in or that you don't need to show up at. So maybe there's some sort of social gathering happening that is, hosted by friends of your ex, people who are more friends with your ex than you were friends with them. You really want to ask yourself the importance of you showing up there if you know your ex is going to be there. Really asking yourself, what are the things that it makes the most sense for me to show up to, and what are the things that it doesn't? Also, when it comes to your home, not letting your ex in your home is a very clear and solid physical boundary. Now, this is not me saying that no one's ex should ever be in their home. What I'm referring to here is that if you have a issue with a controlling ex, a boundary crossing ex, then you will have to be more deliberate about setting certain boundaries in place so that this person isn't in a position to just walk through your home, see what's going on, find things to use against you, any of that sort of stuff. Then you really want to establish, if for instance, if you are, this is like visitation, for the kids sort of thing, you bring the kids out to the person or out to the car, those sort of things. That is a big one actually, because a person's comfort level with being able to walk in and out of your house goes a long way in them understanding what your boundaries are and what you will and won't allow. I'd just like to take a moment to say that if anything about this video has been helpful to you, I strongly encourage you to join my email list. First, you'll get tips on breakup recovery, dating, and stress management. Second, you'll get first dibs at my group coaching programs where I help women move from feeling bitter after breakups to feeling better and to date better. Third, you'll get your free copy of the How to Get Over My Ex cheat sheet. All right, let's get back into it. Then there's technology and setting boundaries around that. Choosing not to answer their calls or texts after a certain time, especially if you have kids and the kids are with them, then there can't be this excuse for them that, oh, I'm making sure the kids are okay, sort of thing, which again would still not be acceptable after a certain time, because the idea is that if the kids are with you, then if there were an issue, you would of course reach out to them in order to let them know there was an issue. Or if they're pulling the whole, I wanted to talk to the kids. Okay, is this a reasonable time to talk to the kids? Because we have routines that we want to have in place and things going on here at my household that can be interrupted by you calling, whenever. So even if it's not super late, it could be at a time of day where there is a routine with the kids that, needs to be done or completed that might interrupt. So you are wanting to get clear around what the structure and routine in your household is, so that you can clearly communicate to your ex the appropriate times to call or reach out. Also, there is the need to block them on social media. You don't need them on social media. If they're controlling and boundary crossing and there are problems there, block them so that they don't have access to your social media, you don't follow theirs, and just be done with that. A lot of this that I'm talking about is, for people who have kids where they would have a reason to need to continue to be in contact with their ex. Because if you don't have kids with the person, then you really want to do your best to just cut off all things. If this person is controlling, again, and crosses boundaries and they're problematic, then why are you dealing with them at all? So you want to really, do your best to cut them off from everything. They shouldn't be coming to your house. You don't need to follow them on social media. They don't need to follow you on social media. Maybe if you have some financial or legal ties, then you are communicating specifically around those things, but everything else you're really trying to cut out. You may even want to set boundaries around the type of communication. So are they FaceTiming you, and that's completely not necessary, and a phone call or a text would do. You can verbalize to them and set out to them what's appropriate when. So, hey, if you're just giving me dates about something, text me. That is easy to communicate via text. If there is a more complicated, tricky conversation that you need to have, then that might be appropriate over a phone call. But also, FaceTiming me randomly without a heads up may never be appropriate. So these are things that you want to determine for yourself, to find out, to understand what you're comfortable with, and then you want to communicate these to your ex. You can also set some social boundaries. So sometimes maybe if it is very volatile between the two of you, you send certain information through other people, never the kids, but other adults who are neutral and mature and honest and responsible and who you trust. But if it's, basic information, then sometimes delivering it through another person who your ex has a neutral relationship with can be helpful. Also, this can come up when transferring the kids for visitations. Maybe sometimes it's that the kids are at a trusted person's home and your ex comes to pick them up and you don't have to be there. Things like this can help create boundaries when they're really necessary. There's also the idea of transferring the kids in a public place so that there's less likelihood for explosive or problematic arguments and altercations. And then there's also the possibility of setting legal boundaries. If you two really can't work it out, or your ex is really over the top and out of line, there are things like going to court to set visitation agreements, establish financial arrangements in court. There's also restraining orders. If it gets to that point where that person is harassing you or other people in your life, stalking you or threatening you, or actually physically or verbally abusing you, then court is also an option. In terms of restraining orders, it likely varies by state, but I know for a lot of states you can go online and you complete the form online. It asks you for a detailed account of all of the reasons why you're concerned for your safety when it comes to this person, and you submit that, and a judge gives you a ruling on that. So it's easy enough, at least apply for a restraining order in a lot of states. So these are things to really consider depending on the severity of the situation with your ex. Ultimately, what you want to keep in mind is that your life is yours. And because you had a relationship with somebody in the past, it does not indebt you to them forever. It does not mean that you are indebted to them forever. And so if they are having a hard time letting go, or they're just really angry, whatever the reason, and they are engaging in controlling behavior or abusive behavior or boundary crossing behavior, you have every right and, quite frankly, obligation to yourself and maybe your children to set boundaries as best as you can in order to help create the life and the environment that you want for yourself and potentially your children as well if you have them. So just know that even if someone is guilting you or trying to make you feel bad about whether you left a relationship or any of those things, just know that it is your right to set boundaries with an ex regardless of how they are behaving when it comes to them being controlling. They may make you feel like or try to make you feel like you owe them something or that you owe them, pretty much aspects of your life. If you have children with someone, you owe them access to their children, assuming that there are no safety concerns with that parent. But outside of that, access to their kids, then you don't owe them things about your personal life. You get to go on to live the type of life that you want to live as long as you are taking care of yourself and your children. So to that, it's just very important to keep this in mind and to understand that this is why you would set these boundaries. And this is why you would go to some of these lengths that I mentioned in order to set these boundaries, because this is how you help to empower yourself and take control of your life to help it be the way you want it to be and not being completely reliant on the behavior of your ex. This idea of, well, this person keeps doing this or they keep doing that, so I can never do this or I can never do that. Absolutely, their behavior can make it more challenging for you to do certain things, but you can also choose to put your foot down around certain things. In the most ideal situation, just verbalize to them, like, this is what I will and won't accept, and it's great if there's somebody who can listen to that. But in the most extreme, sometimes it's legal action, and it can be anything in between as well. So just keep in mind that you owe it to yourself to set and enforce and reinforce your boundaries.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to click the link to join my email list. See you soon.
In today's